Hi, my name is Liz Harper. I'm the archive manager here at the Royal Albert Hall, and I look after the hall's history and archive collections which chart its history since 1871. We collect, preserve, promote and make accessible the hall's history. A few years ago we found parts of a building model tucked under a staircase in a cupboard behind lots of stacked chairs, and as we brought it out into the daylight we realised that it was an original building model for the Royal Albert Hall. So through the uses of specialist conservators we had it pieced back together to form this enormous segment of the Royal Albert Hall. And through a collaboration with the V&A and B15 workshop up in Manchester, we had a replica made which really helps us to now understand exactly how the hall was constructed and what this building model was used for.
So we are here in the hall today to hand over this model. This is a replica that was made last year in 2021 of an original 19th century working model of the hall. I am Simona Valeriani. I work for the Victoria and Albert Museum Research Institute, and I'm here with Scott Miller, who works for the B15 workshop at the University of Manchester.
The replica model was produced at a smaller scale than the original fragment, making it more practical for storage and presentation. Our chosen scale still allows us to show the same level of detail as the original. The intended use of the two models, however, is different. The original required a larger scale in order to accommodate an entire committee of advice being able to observe it simultaneously. Moreover, we think that it's possible to actually stand inside the original model in order to simulate the experience of being in the proposed space. Its size, however, may be the reason why the model was lost and significantly damaged, as storage or display would have taken up a significant amount of space.
So we're standing in this particular section that we've tried to recreate for our replica model. This area that is missing was particularly difficult for us to figure out what was actually going on here, because it didn't correspond with the original plans or what actually exists now. So we had to kind of come up with a compromise that made sense in relation to what we could see of the original model. We're actually sat approximately where this split line lies in the model at the moment, and being in here and being able to actually see it and compare how it looks in reality is really interesting, because at the time when we actually made the model it was entirely remote, and we were relying on Zoom calls and photographic reference, which sometimes was harder to obtain than we might have liked. But we're pretty happy with the result and how it's depicting the area.
What is interesting about this is that this highlights what kind of model the original 19th century artifact was. So it was a model that was recording the progress of the design process, and therefore the replica that we have made is a replica of something that never quite existed. It's a replica of like a time capsule. That model records the thought process of the designer at a particular time, and therefore it's a status that never was recorded in drawings, it's not the status that was built, and since it was built, this area was modified. So this location here actually is a good one to explain what the project involved in terms of reconstructing something that never quite existed, starting with a limited amount of evidence. The roof of the Royal Albert Hall is one of its most exceptional features. It was the largest metal dome ever built at the time and attracted a lot of attention from the press. The metal frame was made by William Fairbairn's firm in Manchester. He was a renowned experimental engineer who also advised on the design of the structure. The dome was provisionally assembled on the roof of the ironworks in Manchester to test it, before being transported to London. This aspect of the history of the Royal Albert Hall added a layer of significance to the collaboration between the V&A, the University of Manchester and the Royal Albert Hall.
When we look at the fragment model, the roof section is constructed in much the same way as the original roof, with a series of trusses projecting upwards from the dividing column of each archway on the upper gallery. The historic model represented the roof glazing using a thin paper. When considering the replica was going to be on open display as part of the Shaping Space exhibition, It was decided that this aspect needed to be quite robust. We therefore chose to represent the shape of the original roof, but use a sturdier material. Our choice was a thin, flexible plywood.
If you look on the outside of the model, you can see that the facade isn't actually fully detailed. It's pasted on as a kind of paper finish.
The reason why the model does not feature a facade is that the design of the exterior was developed separately. In the V&A collections, we have a series of detailed facade models of the Royal Albert Hall. They record different stages of this process.
We're stood here outside the quarter section of the replica that we made, showing part of the original fragment, and the porch section didn't actually feature at all on the original model, so we decided to leave that out as well.
We are delighted to add our model to the Royal Albert Hall collection, and that it will be featured in a public space accessible to all concert goers and visitors of the building.